Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. And welcome back to a bit of transfer talk, albeit the season is still about 2 months away from starting. There is the first mini transfer window that closes on June the 10th, today being the 2nd of June on the day of recording this, because some big news came out this morning through Sky Sports, and then it was followed up by Sam Seaman of the Pink 'Un. It is that Norwich City are going to make their second signing of the 2025-26 season, and they're going to do it before they've even announced their new manager, who looks to be Liam Manning. It's Daniel Grimshaw, the former Manchester City youth product, who is currently at Plymouth Argyle. And as we usually do here on the channel, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive on what we already know about the player, some information about the transfer, and perhaps maybe what we can expect from the player. So first things first, with Grimshaw, his age, 27 years old, very much in his prime years of his footballing career. He is English, and he's never made an appearance for his national team, but as I just said, started off in the Manchester City academy. So every footballer has to start off somewhere, and he's done well enough for himself to play at a relatively decent level for this stage of his career. And at Plymouth Argyle, who, it goes without saying, didn't have the best season. They were relegated, but as we'll get on to, he didn't really have a massive impact on their season as such. He actually played against Norwich, and Norwich won 6-1. So make of that what you will. But we'll go into the next part. I've already said he is a goalkeeper, and Norwich, that is a position they need, especially with the departure of Angus Gunn after his contract was not renewed by Norwich City. Of course, there were quite a lot of controversy around that, and Angus Gunn sort of making it clear that there wasn't many discussions about his contract being renewed. But that's now in the past. What can you do? So Norwich looking to sign a goalkeeper straight away. He's right-footed, which, if you remember a lot of the transfer videos we did last season, Norwich, I think, only signed two right-footed players, and everyone else was a left-footer from what we learned through all of their signings under Yohannisov Torap. So this is a signing very much that's really being made by Ben Napper as such, and the Norwich backroom staff, rather than, of course, their manager or first team head coach, because they haven't got one. But no, it's the position Norwich need to identify very quickly. Otherwise, they will end up with either Vicente Reyes, who is very inexperienced at championship level, or they go with George Long, who, in terms of statistics and performances, hasn't been great for Norwich since his arrival. But Grimshaw coming in, and we go into his stats of last season. They're not really great. He only kept one clean sheet in 21 championship appearances, but just based off that, 21 championship starts. Appearances, starts. It's always really a start with a goalkeeper, isn't it? But you look at that, as I sort of alluded to earlier, didn't have the biggest impact on Plymouth's season or their inevitable relegation to League One after staying up the season prior. He's mainly been the backup goalkeeper. He has been behind Connor Hazard for the majority of his Plymouth career, and Hazard, I'm sure loads of Plymouth fans will probably say, very talented goalkeeper and a strong first choice. And you look at most likely his statistics over Grimshaw, and it probably the levels are sort of spoken there just based off of that. But one clean sheet is more than Vicente Reyes and George Long managed. They both were unable to get a clean sheet for Norwich. Well, George Long came on against Hull at half time and had a clean sheet in that half, but no, it's more than what two of three Norwich goalkeepers managed last season. So I guess there's a positive to take from that. But again, in terms of that may seem concerning to a lot of fans, because it is quite poor. That's worse than getting a clean sheet every 4 or 5 games, pretty much. Actually, no, sorry, that is horrific maths. Ignore me. This is why I didn't do very well in it. Pretty much a clean sheet. Well, yeah, once. No idea why I even said once every 4 or 5, so I apologise for that. But No, it's again, as I've just said, to go back onto it after the maths. We went off on the tangent, but it isn't great. There is no denying that it is poor for a goalkeeper to only keep one clean sheet. But then you think of the bigger picture of Plymouth. Pretty sure they had the worst defensive record in the entire division. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but you know, what more can you do? If you have got a poor standard defence in front of you who are letting in a lot of goals nearly every week, you're not going to be expected to keep the ball out of your own net unless you are a truly brilliant goalkeeper, which you do a bit more of a deep dive into Grimshaw's stats. He's not exactly a world beater as such, but anyway, we move on to what is actually correct maths. He's going to be signing for a fee of £600,000. That was what was reported by Sky Sports this morning, and also led on by Sam Seaman in his Pinken article. Arguably a lot of money for a player who has just been relegated. That is no real sort of report on if that's a release clause or if there was sort of if there's anything around that as to there was a reason as to why Norwich had to pay a quite a big sum for a goalkeeper who only played 21 matches and kept one clean sheet. But as we will go on to in just a second, it's sort of been made clear Norwich on this. It won't be their only goalkeeper signing, but no, it's a fair sum of money. It's for a player who is probably going to end up being Norwich's backup goalkeeper, but every footballer ultimately has a price unless you can sign them on a free on the end of a contract. So there's so many different factors that come into play. With transfer deals, you probably look at remaining loyalty bonuses that may be in contracts. There's also how much they're getting paid, and the club don't want to lose too much money. But no, it's a fair bit, I would argue, for, as I've just said, a goalkeeper who wasn't playing, well, didn't even play half the matches in the Championship last season, and as we've already covered, one clean sheet in 21 games. It's intriguing. Is I think the perfect word for it. For the fee, but as I've just said, every player's got a price, and if you can't sign them for free, well, you have to pay money. So, and so many discussions go on, but at the end of the day, £600,000 is what Norwich will be spending on Grimshaw. But we go on to the last point, as I've pretty much just said. This will be a signing as a number 2 goalkeeper. So Daniel Grimshaw is not going to be Norwich City's number 1 goalkeeper next season, and this transfer has pretty much ended the Norwich City career of George Long. If it is, it looks as if it's nearly as good as done now, and that will be announced within the next. Well, it could be announced tomorrow. It could be announced on the 3rd of June, as I'm recording this on the 2nd, or it could be the day after. So, it's pretty much done. And as I've just said with George Long, it's been we have learned from this deal that George Long has been told he can move on. That's what Sam Seaman has said in his Pinken article. That's very much been the whole discussion on Norwich City social media. Paddy Davitt of the Pinken, I believe, has said it as well. So this transfer effectively is where George Long is just being told, we don't need you. You're surplus to requirements. And you sort of saw that in the back end of last season. You think back to the Millwall away game where George Long, it looked like he was going to be the starting goalkeeper, but then all of a sudden Vicente Reyes was given only, I think, his 3rd Championship start. So he came in as the goalkeeper for that game, and then George Long was dropped to the bench. Johannes Ovtorop even said it himself. That was a selection-based decision depending on performances and statistics. So it was then made clear that George Long isn't that good of a goalkeeper in the eyes of the coaching staff and his manager at the time. And clearly, even when Norwich haven't got a manager, whoever has been having the conversations with him, whether that is Ben Napper or that is the backroom staff, they've made it clear that he's still not going to play as much because there's evident concerns there around George Long and maybe his ability to perform, which, as for any footballer to hear that is a big shame. But you look really at George Long's performances in any game he's played, and they haven't been great. I hate to sort of sound harsh, but they haven't. Hence why Norwich are signing Daniel Grimshaw for £600,000. They want a new backup goalkeeper to provide a little bit of competition. Probably will see Vicente Reyes move out on loan, as he has done for the last few seasons. Of course, was on loan at Cambridge for the first half of last season. Then he was recalled and made a couple of performances, a couple of starts rather. But looks like this is mainly a backup signing, and you look at the link with potential new manager Liam Manning, although that seems like that is all but done now. The compensation deal of £800,000 done and contract talks done. He actually worked with Liam Manning, did Daniel Grimshaw, worked with him in Belgium. Believe the team was called Melem. Again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but these two have worked together before. They've got an understanding of each other. They'll have a relationship that's pre-existing. Manning will know Grimshaw's qualities, and Grimshaw will know sort of how Manning wants to play. So I guess that's beneficial to have, but ultimately he's joining as a second choice goalkeeper to replace George Long. And we'll see most likely in the coming few days, as this small transfer window up until the 10th of June, if Norwich act fast in order to get another goalkeeper and who will be their first choice, or if they'll let that window shut, then Manning can come in and probably assess his team and then make his own signings, or whoever the new Norwich manager will be. For all we know, this Manning deal could fall through at the very last hurdle. But no, there's your first bit of transfer talk for the new season. Daniel Grimshaw from Plymouth Argyle for £600,000, mainly to be a backup goalkeeper. What do you make of the signing? Are you happy with it? Are you not so happy with it? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. This has been Transfer Talk on the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next video of ours very soon.